Hello, everyone. This is your girl, Donna D, aka the Urban Mommy, and I am back with another podcast. Today, I am joined by Miss Kimberly Clark, and she is going to grace us with her presence. She has a wonderful story, an awesome story. A lot is going to be, transpiring today on this call. So I thank you all for joining, and I hope you all listen. So thank you, Kimberly, for coming today.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Great. Okay, so just to start off, can you tell us who you are? Like, who's Kimberly?
Yeah, of course. I'm Kimberly Clark. I'm from Castor, Louisiana, which is North Louisiana. It's about, I usually have to tell people it's about an hour out of Shreveport because they know Shreveport and they know New Orleans, but they don't know little country towns like Castor. So, and I am very country, but I'm a Navy veteran. I spent time on the USS Frank Cable in Guam. I'm a single mother of two, a boy and a girl. So that means I'm completely done. Um, let's see. I am an advocate for women, especially women who have experienced military sexual trauma, for people who've experienced addiction, drug addiction, as well as alcoholism. I'm also a professional speaker and a best-selling author.
Well, congratulations and thank you for your service as well.
Thank you.
All right, so to get started, let's talk about you are a trauma expert. I'm not sure if you said that, but I did read that you are a trauma expert. Can you talk about that a little bit? What
Mhm.
made you go into that?
Yeah, of course. Well, I grew up with some childhood trauma, being touched inappropriately by some family members from age, let's say 9, maybe 9 to like 11 or 12 or something like that. And so with that childhood trauma, there was a low self-esteem, there was those insecurities, that fear, those limiting beliefs. But I was able to suppress that for a long time until I was an adult. And so as an adult going into the military, I also experienced military sexual trauma. And so I believe that MST really changed the whole trajectory of my life. And so after that, I ended up getting a medical discharge from the Navy, coming back home to the States. And within a few weeks of me coming home, I was introduced to crack cocaine. And I was somebody who never even I didn't even know what crack cocaine looked like until the day that I was introduced to it. I didn't know anything about drugs. I was completely sheltered away from stuff like that. And so I'm a trauma expert because I've been through those traumas. I've been through, sexual trauma, childhood sexual trauma, military sexual trauma, narcissistic abuse, right? Domestic violence, all of those things that we women internalize, and we kind of take it out on ourselves, and then it shows up in our behaviors and in our thoughts and how we treat other people, and especially how we treat ourselves. And I treated myself so horribly for so long. And I want to not have other women take as long as I did to learn to love themselves, or to even know that there is an issue. Because a lot of us don't even know there is an issue. We just think it's our personality. We get angry sometimes. That's just who I am. Or I think the worst case scenario, that's just who I am. And a
Right.
lot of this stuff is trauma response. It's
Right.
responding to traumas that's done happened to you. So yeah, I call myself a trauma expert because I've been there, and I really want to help other people not have to find themselves and to find their purpose, because that was my way out.
So you said when you were younger, you would suppress a lot of things. So
Mhm.
in what ways you just kind of pretended like nothing ever happened, or how did you do that?
Yeah, I pretended like nothing ever happened, because I was bullied a lot too, and you know, called ugly, and called uh, too dark skinned, or too fat, or I mean, it was always too something, right? And so, I never spoke up for myself. I never had a voice. I always just let people talk. I would even try to laugh with them, to try to get them to either leave me alone or to make them think that, it was a joke to me too. And so I would do that, and I never ever, use my voice. Never ever use my voice about it. And so I had to really grow into standing up for myself, and to not being okay with accepting someone else's view about who I was.
Right. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's tough. A lot of people don't realize how bad, like when it comes to bullying and stuff like that. A lot of, like you said, we laugh it off, and but you're hurt, and it internalizes, and then you grow up with those issues, thinking that something is wrong with you. I know I
Right.
always jokingly say it, but I mean it's true, and I guess you can probably attest to this. When we were younger, we would always be teased about our color. We were black. We were burnt
Mhm.
biscuits, and Lord, after
Right.
what that movie came out, and everybody that we were African booty scratches. We was
Oh,
all kind of we was all
I
kind of
remember.
different names. But now
Mhm.
it's a different respect, and it's a different admiration that they have for dark skin. So now I will say that it's a different time, but that's why I don't think people could ever understand what we went through back in the 90s, the 80s. They won't
Mhm.
understand it because they would never imagine the environment that it was, the climate that we had to deal with being dark skinned.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was tough. So, can you talk a little bit about? I know you mentioned the drug addiction. That's something that I've been,
Mhm.
not my personally, but I've been dealing with in my family, drug addiction. So, can you
Mhm.
talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, like I grew up pretty sheltered. Like I wasn't introduced to drugs or anything. Like I knew my dad was an alcoholic, but that's pretty much all I knew about him. And so after going through the Navy, and I know you probably heard of drinking like a sailor. Well, we sailors do drink a lot, and that's when I was introduced, to alcohol, of course. But it was just a thing that we did. It wasn't. I didn't see it as a problem back then. But we would drink on the weekends. We would drink to on deployments. We would just drink just to celebrate, or because it was the weekend. It was just a normal thing. And so after the sexual trauma happened in the Navy, I tried to commit suicide, and they ended up medevacing me back to the States, back to San Diego. And from San Diego, um, I got a medical discharge. I came home. I've been like just depressed. I was depressed, but I was like kind of acting out at the same time. Like I didn't know what to do with myself. Here I was 19 years old because I joined at 17. I was 19 years old. My career, something that I wanted to do for 20 years, was cut short. Not I didn't want a medical discharge. I wanted to be in the Navy for 20 years. And I just didn't know what to do with myself, with my life, nothing. And so like 2 weeks, if it was 2 weeks later, hanging out with some family members, riding around drinking, listening to music, and we ended up at my cousin's boyfriend's house. And so they were in the kitchen doing something, and I wanted to know what they were doing. And we was in a house. It was an abandoned house, didn't have no electricity on, right? And so I had been drinking, so I didn't really care too much. It was raining outside, and I just wanted to know what they was doing because they seemed happy. And they were in there. I asked if I could do it. At first, they was like, no. And then my cousin's boyfriend was like, yeah, I'll show you how to do it. And that's when I was introduced to crack cocaine. And from the moment that I tried it, I went back to it. And I tried to go back to it on my own. Um, because it made me forget. It made me not feel for a while. Even if it was for just like what 5 minute high, probably. That 5 minutes, I wasn't feeling nothing. And so that 15 minutes of being introduced to a drug became 15 years of homelessness, of jail, of rehab, psych units, suicidality. Um, it became chaos. 15 years of chaos. I mean, that's what drug addiction does to you. Like you may think that you can manage it for a while, or that you can function and maybe keep a job, or maybe keep your home. But I was never that type of addict. I was never that type of. I might keep a home for a few months, and then I'm gonna buy the dope before I pay bills. And next thing you know, like I'm on my own. For a while, like I always had somewhere to come back to. Like my family, we own 40 acres of land here in Castor. So I felt like I always had somewhere to come back to. But eventually that even ran dry because they start finding out about codependency. They start finding out about addiction. They start looking up stuff on their own to know how to handle me. And they started setting boundaries with me. So it was just between me and God then. It was between me and God. And I had to come to a decision. Do I want to keep living like this? Do I want my kids to stay with my mother forever? Do I want to die like this? Do I want to die as somebody who never even experienced who I really am, or never even known who I really am because of a drug? And I got tired. I got tired and I decided to do something different. But you having drug addiction in your family, like I can't imagine the things that I put my family through. All the pain, the worry, them knowing there's nothing they can really do but just love me, and whenever I'm ready, help me out. But up until I was ready, they couldn't do anything. And so I'm really sorry that you have someone in your family that you're dealing with it with.
Yes, I have a couple, and I'm actually I'm a my parent. I had this, my situation with my parents was that.
Mhm.
So, and I remember my mom said that she had a dream, and then
Mhm.
she had one of those bad dreams that she was killed, and she
Mhm.
said that that kind of woke her up, and she decided she was gonna change her life. And I want to say it's been at least 30 years since I mean, she's been doing well. She's doing good, but it was a dream that got her. Do you remember the moment that you knew that it was time?
Hmm. Well, I remember in 2020, I've been clean for maybe a year, maybe a little over a year. And then it's when the pandemic hit. And I wasn't able to go to AA meetings anymore. I wasn't able to do anything. And I promise you, everything was closed except the liquor stores. And I went and got some liquor. I thought, all right, just be at home by myself, and I'm just gonna drink it because I need to go to sleep. And the lies that I was telling myself, and I did that, and I was back out there. Um, I remember at the end of 2020, I went home. I was still in my addiction. I went home to spend Christmas with my kids because they were here with my mother. And I came home and I could, like, every time I would get up, go to the bathroom, or get up, walk outside, to smoke a cigarette at that time, my kids were like, "Oh, mama, where you going? Where you going? You coming back?" Like I literally gave them abandonment issues. Literally. Every time I got up to go anywhere, they thought I was leaving and they didn't know when I was coming back. And that hit me a different way because it wasn't people telling me what I was doing. It was me actually seeing, me actually, I know about mental health, and me actually seeing what I'm doing to my kids it hit different. And I've been just crying out to God. You know what? I used to laugh at people who would sing gospel songs while they were high, or who would pray while they were high. I'm like, these people playing with God. They playing with God. Until I found myself doing it
Mm.
because I was hurting. I didn't like to get high. I felt like I had to. I didn't know what to do to stop. And I found myself crying out to God. And he helped me. He changed my mind. He changed my heart. My mother, before I went back to where I was living in a hotel at this time. Lost my apartment, lost my truck, everything. I within like 6 months. And I went back. My mother told me, if you need to come back, you can. And that gave me a plan now. Now I don't have to live in this hotel getting high and drunk every day. Now I can go home, but I'm gonna have to go detox first. And so I went to a cousin's house first. She let me detox at her house. I detoxed there for like 3 days. Um, and then I came home to my mother's. I had to wait on the VA to get me into a rehabilitation, and that's what I did. And I stayed clean until I waited to get to that rehab. And in that rehab, I did EMDR therapy, which helped me deal with every trauma, every last one of them, one by one. And that's what it takes. It takes you accepting what happened in your life. As bad as it hurts, it's not gonna kill you. You just gotta feel it. You gotta accept that it happened. Yeah, people hurt you, people were dirty, people are evil. That's true. But acceptance and realizing that you're still here for a reason.
That's true. I have a question. So, what type of advice would you have to the family? Because a lot of times we as family dealing with the situations, we try our best. You know, we sometimes we are codependent, and I know I was for several years, but I had to stop, and it hurt me to say no. I'm not giving you anything. It hurt me, but I had to do it. It took, and I finally, like, I don't want to say, I was upset. I had my breaking point, and I was like, look, I can't do this anymore. I mean, she was having baby after baby, and she had one, and she left this baby in the hospital.
Mm,
So like they were calling us, and I felt bad, and I put a lot of pressure and stuff on myself because I tried to take the
mm,
baby, but I couldn't because the baby was born addicted to drugs.
mm,
She I didn't know if I was going to be able to give her everything she needed. Plus I had another child from
mm,
her. Plus I have my own child, and it was a lot, and I was by myself at the time. So a lot of times I
mm,
beat myself up because I felt like I could have fought harder, but I really couldn't, and I wouldn't want to
mm,
not give that child everything that she deserves. I mean, I felt bad about it, and I still do feel bad about it. But what
mm.
advice do you have for family members that are dealing with people that's in the middle of their addiction?
Well, first I want to say that you putting yourself out there to try to help that baby. I believe that God sees your effort, but I also think that that may not have been your assignment. Like we all have an assignment. We all have something that we need to do. And I think that that just may not have been your assignment. As for people, family members, know that the more you give the addict, the easier it is for them to kill themselves.
Mm,
Because that's what we're doing. We're killing ourselves. When we get high, we're killing ourselves. And let's say I've been getting up, I was high, getting high all night. All right. I'm already in that zone. And I come ask you for money and you give me $50 more. Right. Now I'm going out and getting something else to keep getting high, but not knowing that the whole time I'm getting high, like my heart is giving out. So that next $50 that you give me might take me on out.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? Like just knowing that you can't give in to their demons.
yeah.
No matter how much you love them, because you love them, do not help them kill themselves. That's the way you have to look at it. You can love them, keep the line of communication open, and just let them know, hey, look, whenever you're ready, I'll help you every step of the way. But
Right.
I'm not going to help you get high. I'm not going to help you mess over your life. I'm not going to help you keep going further and further down the rabbit hole. But when you're ready to leave, give them an option. Like let them
Right.
know that when they're ready, they'll have a plan. Because I'm gonna help
Right.
you do whatever you need to do and get in wherever you need to be.
Mm,
But until the end, I can love you from a distance. If you need a plate, sometimes I'll give you a plate, but you're not coming in my house. Like
mm,
be set boundaries with them.
right.
Let
You
them
have
know,
to.
like, yeah, I love you, but you're in addiction right now, and I don't trust you, but I love you, and I
Mm-hmm.
would do anything to help you
Mm-hmm.
whenever you get ready for me to help you.
Right.
Know that it was nothing that you guys did or nothing that you know the family did. That It was a choice for us to deal with our pain by using drugs. It was my choice. It was my choice. It wasn't the way I was raised. It wasn't, it wasn't even the things that happened to me. It was me making a conscious decision to deal with my pain by using drugs. So don't take any of the blame, any of the fault.
Hmm.
Know that you're doing what you're supposed to do by loving them and letting them know whenever you're ready to get help. I'll be that bridge. I'll help you. But
Right.
until then, you got to set your boundaries and don't feel bad about it
Right.
because it's the right thing to do.
Right. I have one of her kids, so I'm like, I'm just
Mhm,
upset because I'm like, she knows what happened to us growing up. I mean, not I don't see
mhm,
nothing happen. Nothing happened to us, but I mean,
mhm,
the fact that we were dealing with parents that were addicted to drugs, she knew how that affected us. So it kind of
right,
bothers me that she's doing that to her children. She has five. So
mhm,
it bothers me that she's doing that. But I do she and I think she knows that I do love her, but I just
mhm.
it's just hard. It's hard to say no. And I
Yeah.
thank you for that advice, but it is hard to say no. But I was just trying to see maybe how she sees it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think she may see it as like only when you get to a point to where you have to actually tell them because they're like we're not going to assume that like you love us but you're not gonna help us for my own good. Like you have to say that, you know what
Right.
I'm saying, like say like I love you but I'm not going to help you kill yourself. I'm not going to help you. I'm not sure we can say that, but I'm not going to help you, keep going down this road, but I help you get out of it. I help you get out of it, but I'm gonna have to set some boundaries. As hard as it is for me to set these boundaries, I'm gonna have to do it because I love you.
Right. Okay. So
Mhm,
let's talk a little bit about. I know you say you talk about like purpose. So
mhm.
how was that process and finding your purpose? What were some of the things? I know you said EMD. Hold on,
EMDR.
therapy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So how was that something that you used to help you with your purpose?
yeah. The EMDR therapy really helped me like get through my trauma. That type of therapy, it rewires your brain instead of reliving the traumas. When you think about it, it's more of an acceptance of okay, this happened to me, but I'm through it now and I don't have to run and hide every time I feel these feelings. And so whenever I dealt with those traumas, and for me it was getting now, I first got to say this, that AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, NA, Narcotics Anonymous, all those things do work. The 12 steps do work. But this time for me, it wasn't the 12 steps. Like it was just me and God. And so going through that type of therapy and actually going to church and having a good spiritual counsel was what worked for me. And when I started serving other people, helping other people, that's when I found out, man, like this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I love doing. And that's how I knew what my purpose was. Your purpose is tied to your what you're passionate about. Whatever you're passionate about, like you can easily find what you were created to do. And that's how I found out what my purpose was and what I wanted to do. I know I wanted to serve other people. I know that I wanted to use my story to do it. And it was like, God saying that everything you went through wasn't in vain because I use it now, to help other people. And as many times as I've been in jail, I never thought that I would be able to get a good job. I honestly thought I would be on VA disability just for forever and just not do anything. And I'm 34 years old and I thought like I can never have a career. I can never do anything because of mental health and because of the lifestyle I was living, and of course because of my criminal record. But as a peer support specialist now, I literally get paid to use my story to help other people. Like that's what it is. And I work for the Louisiana Department of Health. Like, who would have ever thought somebody with a criminal record like mine could, and so that just tells you, like, no matter how bad you think you messed up with your life, no matter, how much negativity and evilness in your head telling you about everything that you cannot do, it's a lie. Anything that you work at, you can do.
That is so true. I like that. That's big, and congratulations for that. Because me, it seems like like you're doing so well, and I don't know. I'm happy listening to this story because I can, almost foresee the situation that I'm dealing with. Hopefully coming to this, because we're in Louisiana too, so
Yeah.
it'll be good.
Awesome.
So tell me a little bit about. I know you say you went to jail. So when you were gone, what were those experiences like?
You know what? I would never in jail more than 30 days.
Okay.
Until one time I was in there 90 days. But yeah, my ex-husband, he would come get me out. My sister actually came and got me out once. Um, but yeah, I never did any serious crimes.
Right.
I
Yeah.
everything I did was, directly related to,
To the drugs.
drugs and alcohol. And so, or being angry, and just acting out, it was just all craziness. And um, so yeah, I was never in more than, at the most, 90 days. There was one time, I went to jail, and I think my bond was like $100, and I just knew my family was gonna come get me, and I was giving them the $100 to come get me. All you had to do was show up.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandmother passed while I was in there, and I knew, like, I know without a shadow of a doubt they coming. And I called my mom. I'm like, why y'all ain't come up here yet? I didn't, y'all have the access to my money. Why don't you just, come get me? It's only $100. My mom was like, if you're in jail, I know where you at. So we're not gonna do it. I'm like, Mama, like, Granny died. At least I know where you're at, and I know you're alive.
Mm. And that was going to
And
be my next question. My next question was going to be,
mm,
did you ever wish that they would have let you sit for a little while because you
oh,
were
they
able?
did.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so how did you, like, I guess, find the courage to be able to tell your story? Because a lot of people don't like to become vulnerable. They don't like to tell their story. They're embarrassed.
Mhm.
But so how do you find that confidence to tell your story and not be embarrassed?
I think, well, I know it's because, well, one, I got tired of other people telling my story for me. People like to spread rumors and to tell what they've seen, especially when it comes to an addict or a crackhead, as they would say. They love to tell stories, but most of the time it get twisted about 6 or 7 times before the actual truth. And so I got tired of people telling my story for me. And I also, because I never had a voice. I never used my voice growing up, even as an adult. Like, I never spoke up for myself. I never set any boundaries with people. I didn't know how to say no. And when I healed, when I'm gonna say this, when I started my healing process, I started finding out who I was. And this Kim can be vulnerable. Like, this Kim uses honesty and open-mindedness to get farther. This Kim's honesty about my life is my greatest asset because people resonate with it. People get healed by it. People be set free by it. And so that's how I found the courage through my healing. Um, and it wasn't a secret. It wasn't a secret anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of times we think stuff is a secret, but it's not. And plus, a lot of people go through some of the same things. They just don't say anything about it. They be happy when somebody speaks up about it. It may not be the exact same thing, but the exact same emotions are tied into it. Exact same feelings are tied into it. And so they're
Exactly.
happy when somebody speaks up. And God has just given me the the ability or the gift to be able to speak up and be vulnerable and be okay with it and be okay with it.
And when you said that about the other people or probably wanting this story, I'm thinking about all of the people right now because I know in New Orleans it's pretty bad, Baton Rouge as well. The
Mm.
pills,
Mm.
and a lot of times they try to look down on other drug users. But drug addiction is addiction.
Right.
I had a friend and he went back and forth and I used to always I would he would just be a friend I would just talk to and he would always go in and
Mm.
out of jail, in and out of rehab, and we were
Mm.
talking about drugs and he was like, well, I don't snort, I shoot or whatever, but he was I forgot which one is better than the other one, but whatever one was is supposed to be better is the one he said he did. And I was
Mm.
just like, you're looking at it wrong. Like
Right.
addiction is addiction. You gotta stop. You gotta stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, drugs is really big in my life. I told you it's
Mhm.
from the beginning, and I have no
Mhm.
problem being vulnerable for so many years. As a
Mhm.
child, I was embarrassed and I was ashamed, but it wasn't until I was an adult, as in like recently, that I realized that that was not my fault. I was always just
Mhm.
embarrassed. I'm like, what did I have to be embarrassed about that my parents had that problem. Fortunately, they were able to, fix themselves, but I was hurt as a kid and I had all kind of issues. I had all kind of trauma and I like you said, I suppressed it, but inside it was eating me up.
Mhm.
It was eating me up. So
Yeah.
I decided that I had to be vulnerable because I had to talk about it because if you don't talk about it, then you can't ever get help for it.
Right.
So
Right.
again, thank you for your story.
Absolutely.
A little bit. I had another question. Oh, you said you had a narcissistic abuse. Can you talk a little bit
Mhm.
about that?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I got married basically in those like 15 years of in and out of addiction. There was a marriage in there. And so I married someone 30 years my senior. I had daddy issues, a lot of them. Like I told you before, my dad, only thing I really knew about him was he was an alcoholic. I didn't know my dad at all. And so, yeah, I married someone 30 years my senior. I think I married, I was what, 22 and he was like 52, 55, something like that. And I was never like a club person, but I went out to the club this one night with a friend of mine. She was like, "Why don't you just get out, go meet somebody?" I'm like, "Okay, cool." I think I might have had like 4 or 5 months clean at that point. So I went out to the club and I meet him. And we started talking and he was everything that I ever wanted in a partner, right? Everything. Literally down to a T. But I think that was because back then when I first met people or relationships, I would tell them my whole life story, right? I would tell them every hurt, every pain, like, please don't do this to me, right? And so he literally turned into that person that I wanted him to be. And we got married maybe less than a year later. Um, and I relapsed like right after that because we were toxic. We were toxic. Like he knew my buttons and he would push them every time. He was manipulative. He was a liar. He was a cheater. Um, he would make me feel like I was crazy. Now, for somebody who grew up believing I was crazy already, like he would confirm it for me. He would say things and say wouldn't say, the gaslighting, things like that. And so yeah, I went through. We was married for 7 years. 4 of those years we were separated. We was only really married for those 3 years, and I feel like he watched me or helped me lose everything, and then left me out there, like literally got. Guess that saying, "Throw me to the wolves." I feel like that's what happened. And so I didn't know it was narcissistic abuse until like later. I knew something had happened to me. I knew that something wasn't right about what I went through in that marriage and that relationship, but I didn't know how to put it in words. I didn't know what gaslighting was. I mean, I knew about being manipulative, of course, but I didn't know a narcissistic manipulative. And I looked up, narcissist, and I would join these Facebook groups, and I was doing all these things trying to find out what happened to me, because I know I'm not crazy, and I know this man was emotionally, psychologically abusing me, but I didn't know what words to put to that. And as soon as I looked up narcissism, I'm like, oh my God, this is what I was married to. This is exactly all these women who've been married for 20 plus years, and going through all these narcissistic relationships, going through all this abuse and all this. I saw my story in theirs. We literally had the exact same stories. And it was like, man, like, how can people, you know, I can't even, I can't fake a friendship because I don't like you. I don't like you. But people actually be out here faking relationships for money or for a place to stay. People fake relationships for a pack of cigarettes and a 40 ounce. People do that. That's crazy, but they do it. And I just don't see how people, you know what I'm saying?
Very true.
I'll never understand it, and I don't want to understand it because I don't want to ever be in that way of thinking, right? And so, yeah, I dealt with narcissistic abuse, finding out things about him and who he was, about his sexuality. It completely devastated me, and I would say it helped keep me out there for years later after that.
That's a lot, and it's just
Yeah,
more on top. It's a lot to
yeah.
deal with. And then I guess if you never truly learn how to deal with your trauma, it just
Mhm.
continues to build up. Do you know anything about trauma bonds?
Absolutely. Yeah, trauma, man. I think people, the people that sexually abused me, like I was bonded to them. I felt like if I first, like if I said something about it, like I would be in trouble, or they wouldn't like me if I said anything about it. They wouldn't love and I wanted them to like me, right? The people that hurt me, the people that, took advantage of me, I wanted them to like me. I was trauma bonded. It's like you're bonded to toxicity. Like, it's toxic, but there's still something about you that's attached to it. There's something about you that want to be close to it. No matter it's literally taking you out. But you have to be close to it. You want more of it, but you don't. You don't. That's not who you are. But it's a spiritual connection that has y'all together, or that has you in that situation together, and you don't know how to get out of it. That's definitely a trauma bond. Yeah, I know about trauma bonds.
Yeah, I always heard the term, and I actually didn't know about it, but somebody was trying to explain it to me yesterday, and that was,
Mm,
similar to what you just said. So,
mm,
just like you said, sometimes we know what we're dealing with, but we don't know how to verbalize it. We don't know the actual terms. Just like
mm,
with narcissists, we heard of manipulation and stuff like that, but we heard the word narcissist. I always thought narcissist was just somebody that thought they were all that and had a huge
mhm.
ego, but I didn't realize that there were different layers to it, and I just didn't know. But I'm learning a lot about that. So it's interesting to learn all these terms. So the trauma
Yeah,
bonds, because we never really quite understand what's going on in our lives. But I'm glad that
right.
there's a term for it, which means if there is a term, then you can look it up and you can find a way to help yourself. Did you do traditional therapy?
I did. I did. Along with the EMDR, we I did traditional therapy as well. That therapy, um, having spiritual counsel as well, and I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I do martial arts. And so the emotional, the spiritual, and the physical, you have to work on all those things in combination in order for you to heal. And a lot of people don't see that, like, physically moving, helps you out spiritually, but it does. You don't have to go out and do martial arts like me, or go out and run a marathon. Get up, walk 30 minutes a day. Just moving around. Movement changes your mood. it changes how you feel. Like a lot of times we don't feel like getting up and moving, but it's because, like, no, I'm not gonna say that. But I was about to get real spiritually deep on you, but I'm not gonna do that. So yeah, movement changes our mood. And so when we get up and start moving around, like we'll start to feel better. And we don't like to get up unless we already feel better. But it's
Hmm.
actually reverse.
You could preach. It's all good. It's
Okay.
everything. Everything happens for a reason. If they said let the spirit leave you, let them use you. Let them
Okay.
use you, Kim. But yeah, so there was another question I had, and it just it
Okay.
just went away from me. Um, do you know? Can we talk about a little bit about the victim mentality? Did you have
Mhm.
that, and did you realize that you had to get out of that victim mentality?
Yeah, I had it. I thought, you know, that went along with me in relationships. Like within the first week of you meeting somebody, they should know your whole life story and all the traumas you went through. But that was me subconsciously wanting attention and wanted to be treated differently because of that. And I think that goes along with it because when we when we tell our traumas in a way that's not empowering or in a way that's not bringing hope, right? We want something from it, and oftentimes it's not something positive. And so, not having the mindset of this is what happened to me, so I'm gonna act out for the rest of my life, and it's justified because I went through so much. You know, I can cuss people out because I'm angry because I was abused, and it's okay. It's justified because of what I went through. No, we don't have a right to treat people crazy because we were treated bad, because we were hurt. We don't have a right to do that. And that's all inclusive with the victim mentality. Thinking that you can treat anybody else any kind of way because of your hurt and your pain. And that's a part of victim mentality too.
That is, do you find that you were a people pleaser at one point?
Very much so. I told you before, like I didn't know how to say no to people. Um, I didn't really know what that was. I felt like I had to please people in order to be liked, in order for them not to talk about me. That they talked about me, I felt bad. But even in feeling bad, I wasn't gonna say anything back. I was just gonna hold on to it and maybe cry later. But I was definitely a people pleaser. I wanted to please the people around me because I felt like they had more power than me, or they, were smarter than me, or they was prettier than me, or I definitely wanted to be like everybody but myself. And I'm so glad that God took those insecurities away from me, that fear away from me, because all those things are spiritual. All those all those negative thoughts, those negative emotions, all that is spiritual, and it's meant to tear you down as a person. It's meant to keep you away from your purpose. It's meant to keep you away from your gift, because if you're operating in your gift, then you're pleasing God. Then you're doing what you're supposed to do, right? And so the enemy doesn't want that. The enemy wants you stuck. The enemy wants you bound. His play place is the mind. And if we don't take control of it, he'll be controlling it. And we won't even know he's doing it until it's too late.
That's true. That whole last part, it sound like
Mhm,
myself. And again, like I told you, I'm learning a lot about myself as well. And another
mhm,
term I learned was imposter syndrome.
mm. Yeah, yeah. Imposter syndrome. We like to talk ourselves out of our greatness. I'm not good enough for this. I can't do this. Somebody's gonna be so much better than me. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm actually about to get on stage here. Like, what was I thinking? Oh, listen, if God gave you, because God gave you a purpose, he's gonna also provide provisions for it, right? He's gonna teach you how to use it if you allow him to do it. But allowing your mind to tell you that to be an imposter, to try to tell you that you can't do something, to that your overall failure is a lie from the pits, is a lie, because many of us didn't make it. Many of us didn't make it out the hood. Many of us didn't make it out of addiction. Many of us didn't make it, you know, going from one place to another place in our vehicle. But because we did, right, we still have work to do.
That's big. So, as we get to the end of the show, I asked everyone if they could go back and talk to their 17-year-old self, what would they tell them?
To learn to love yourself, um, to know that you were created literally for greatness, and that God's had so many plans for you. To not let people walk over you, that they won't like you because of it, that they won't like you even more because of it. To learn more about your mindset, and to allow God to do what he needs to do in your life.
I like that. All right. So, you are an author. Can you tell us about your book?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I have two books. My first one is a memoir. It's called Stuck Between Pleasure and Pleasing God. It's about, my life. It's about from childhood to the military to addiction, and to now, to how I made it out. And it goes into great detail. I don't hold anything back. Even, the addict stories, the I don't go like into gruesome stuff about sexual trauma, nothing like that. But I do go into great detail. I'm completely honest, completely vulnerable in it. My second book, Make Up Your Mindset. I wrote that one for teenagers, um, because I know it's funny that you asked, what would I tell my 17-year-old self? Because I wrote that book for teenagers and for young people, so that they know that their feelings are not facts. They know that they don't have to compare. They can stay in the moment, right? For them to normalize healing, just for them to be able to know what's going on the inside of them, and to know that there's greatness in them. And pretty much all the things that I wish I knew at 17 is in that book. And it's only 55 pages. Like, I get straight to the point. Straight to the point. Like, I don't tell you a whole bunch of stories or anything like that. It's straight to the point. And so, yeah, yeah. Make up your mindset and Stuck Between Pleasure and Pleasing God.
Is there a website or can you get it on Amazon or anything like that?
Yeah, you can get on Amazon. I do have a website. It's www.kimberlyclarkspeaks.com. Yeah, everything's on there. I do a professional speaking as well. Speaking to young people from 13 to maybe 25. I'm telling them not only about my story, but like how to heal and how to take back control of your mindset, right?
How close are you to Monroe?
About an hour.
Okay, I have a sister. She has a group called Queens of Tomorrow, and she
Mhm.
mentors girls. She has a bunch of girls in her group, and I want to connect y'all too because I think you would be a great speaker for some of her girls. I mean, she has an excellent program out there. She's doing really, really well for herself. So I want to connect
Okay.
y'all too.
Absolutely,
Um,
yeah.
Again, I want to say thank you so much, Kimberly Clark, Kim,
Mhm.
for being on this, been on the show. It, like I tell everybody, and I mean this really from the bottom of my heart. I always do this because I want to help the guests, but each time I have helped myself as well. You guys are really, I
Yeah.
appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. And your story was, I didn't want to say too much because I was like, I don't want to cry, but just thinking about it, it was big. And I'm so happy to see you because, like I said, I could see her in you, and I just pray, and I just look forward to the day that I could be talking to her, telling her story about,
Yeah.
being out there. So again, thank you, and thank you to the
Thank
guests for
you.
staying for this time. And I really hope that you all were blessed by this story because it was big. And like I always end every time, if the Lord says the same, I'll see y'all next week. Bye.